started writing this in January of '07, and when we started shooting, January of '10. So yeah, so basically 2.5, 3 years, we were hammering on it, and then we didn't stop even after we shot. The thing that I'm used to at Pixar is putting it all up in storyboards with us doing the voices, and then after 6 months you rip it all down and do it again, and you do it at least 4 times over the course of 2 or 3 years. And when I realized what that equated to in live action, that's getting to do a complete reshoot of the entire film 4 times. Yeah. And that's probably why the Pixar films hold up. Honestly, it's not about being really gifted more than somebody else. It's that we kind of created an environment where we get that the creative process is all about taking risks and failing, and it being safe to fail. And so I got myself with Mark Andrews, who's a great storyboard artist and writer, and he had grown up with the book like I did, same age, sort of fell in love with it. And then, like out of the heavens, about a year later came Michael Chabon, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, if you've read that. And he also grew up with the book. So it became this weird kind of club where you couldn't write on this unless you truly had, fallen in love with it as a child. And we even had drawings from our youth that we could pull out from our files to prove that we had drawn characters from it when we were like 10 or 11.
People have tried to make this film a lot.
Yeah, since 1935.
Right. So wasn't it Robert Rodriguez?
That was in 2003.
He had a go.
Yep.
Jon Favreau?
It went Robert Rodriguez, then it went to Kerry Conran, then it went to Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau took it the farthest and was really close, but they couldn't agree on the budget. And so he had to leave, and he went on to do Iron Man, so I don't think he has any regrets.
Has he seen it yet? Have any of them seen it yet?
He came on. He called me right after the property went back, and we picked it up. And he was really nice. He didn't have to do this. He called me and said, "Look, I'm so bummed that I can't do this picture, but if it had to go to anybody, I'm so glad it went to you. And I just have one request, that I be a Thark." And I said, "Okay." So that bookie that holds the bowl says you lost your wage. That's Jon Favreau.
That's great.
Yeah. And you get some weird fans out of the woodwork. I don't know if you noticed in the credits, David Schwimmer from Friends is actually a Thark in it. It's a Ross Thark. And, he has 1 line in there, or 2 lines in there. So yeah, he was just a huge fan of the books, and who's going to know?
I'm especially intrigued by the process of the motion capture. Because I've never done it, and I'm fascinated how you convince people to. How did you do that with those guys?
I never worked with motion capture before either, and you can go back to the beginnings of Snow White and Cinderella, made in the 30s and made in the 50s, and they shot human beings in costumes doing every scene you see in those movies as reference. They didn't trace them, but they had it as reference, so they knew what a human being did, so that they could, because animation's all about caricature. It's all about exaggeration. It's very much like radio play. You have to slightly exaggerate for it to seem normal.
Right.
And so I knew motion capture, all it was going to be was a starting point. They're really not that different. It's just animation's in slow motion. Like you make a decision here, a decision there, a decision there, a decision there over a course of a week, and then 6 months later you see what that wrought.
Yeah.
And in live action you make the same decisions now, and you see immediately what you decided.
Yeah.
And so that's really the big difference. But the conversations, the creative thought process, the decision making, the talks, they're all the same. It's just you're doing it outside under duress, Burroughs wrote 11 books about these characters and about these places, so we had a lot of, it's like having an encyclopedia to pull from. The adaptation that I always hold like really in high regard for cinema is Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
I remember reading that book right when it came out and loving it, and then going to see the movie I think about a year and a half later and feeling like, wow, they did exactly the book, and then going back and they changed so much, but you didn't feel like it was sacrilege because he had kept the spirit of the book. And I realized that was the goal on going on this. Apologize if I'm offending anyone, but I have a real hard time with being preached at or preaching. I don't go to read, or listen to my entertainment for that. I feel like if an artist is honest, they will tap into some truth, some value that they just really believe in, that hopefully is more emotional-based, humanity-based, than something political or something academic. I'm not against those. That's just never going to drive me. Maybe it's just because I'm in that camp where like I'm completely smitten by the music, and it takes me years to listen to the lyrics. Like, oh, you realize that song's about incest? Oh, really? I had no idea. I've been humming that song for years, you know. And so for me, how I'm wired up is like, if a message is going to come through, or messages, I want it to happen organically or almost by accident. I almost want to find out after the fact. I'm even like that with a theme. It's like I want to let the movie or tell me at some point, hopefully farther along, but with time to then own it, then to come around and go, oh, that's what I was saying and I didn't know it, and then adjust for that, so that it can be the most honest piece of work it can be. I always saw it as a series, and before there was such a nasty word as franchise or any of those things, I remember as a kid going, oh, I wish there was a Bond series like this. Yeah. And so my whole desire, including the other writers, was to start the snowball rolling. And so we wanted to treat it like a television season rather than a singular movie. So we got the rights to the first 3 books, and we outlined all 3 as a trilogy 3 years ago. And then we just got really serious on the writing of the script of this one, and we treated this like a pilot. My big issue with serial movies is that often they leave you with cliffhangers that are unsatisfying and also seem to have a little bit of hubris, like, oh, we'll be back, we're so confident about this movie. and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have complete emotional closure,
yeah,
but have some meta stuff that if we decide to go farther, there is plenty more to develop, yeah, not only plot-wise, but relationship-wise. I mean, that was a quick date and suddenly they're married, you know, these two. It's like, there's a lot of learning to meet each other that I find so juicy that we're writing right now for the next one, of just like, on all the relationships. They're all beginnings at the end of this movie, which I find really exciting.